Good afternoon, everyone. We are absolutely delighted to meet and greet every one of you to our webinar today. My name is Andy Giri. I am the Managing Principal at SoftSquare. SoftSquare has been delivering over 500 Salesforce implementations over the last 12 years. After months of lockdowns and economic slowdown, we all are bracing to return to the workplace. Safety is of prime importance when it comes to return to work. And that is why our practice has chosen to zero in on solving this problem in alignment with Salesforce.com. In last week's webinar, we presented concepts related to safely reopening offices with staggered shifts. We also brought in a mining expert who discussed how shift scheduling works in the mining industry. In today's presentation, we will delve deeper into Work.com's shifts management and scheduling module and how it will help you with scheduling shifts for your workforce. Next slide, please. We were featured in last year's Dreamforce 2019, among the top 20 product development partners in the world globally. Next slide. I would like to delve into a couple of customers. We have a large customer base. Two customers come to my mind when it comes to field service. The number one customer of ours, Johnson Controls, has been engaging with us for the last 5 to 6 years in developing and customizing multiple tools on the Salesforce platform, particularly in field service using ServiceMax. We bring extensive experience with field service management at Johnson Controls into this new context of shift scheduling for reopening workplaces. The other case in point is Velocity. Velocity is the longest standing customer of ours for 10 years. Velocity deploys devices across trucks and buildings all over the United States. Their deployments involve numerous field service technicians. SoftSquare has built work order processing software for Velocity. As part of that software, we have built sophisticated scheduling software that allows their project managers to assign technicians to workplace installation locations. And with all this experience, we are bringing in our COVID-19 expert and data scientist, Dr. Alex Peter, to present this webinar today. Dr. Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Andy, and good afternoon, everyone. Great. So today we're going to cover the part 2 of shift management. We had a webinar last week on part 1. So we're going to quickly go through what we covered last week, and then we'll go ahead and proceed with the final part of the shift management webinar. So let's go ahead and get started. Our initial plan was to start with the health screening and then move into contact tracing and into shift management. Now we have kind of moved around and we're going into shift scheduling first, and then next week we're going to go ahead and focus on contact tracing. So this is a part 2 of part 3. So we have 3 parts to this reopening initiative. The first part is a health screening. The second part was supposed to be contact tracing, but we have shifted it around. We're doing shift scheduling, and then the third part, contact tracing, is next week. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So in shift scheduling, this is the workflow of shift scheduling. As you can see, shift scheduling has 5 major components. The wellness survey, this was the employee health survey. And then we go into facility planning. And after facility planning, we go into the employee availability survey. And then once we get that response, we move into the shift scheduling and optimization. So today we're looking at the last phase, which is shift scheduling and optimization. Let's go to the next slide, please. So in shift scheduling and optimization, there are 3 key roles, and these are the 3 roles: workplace manager, shift planner, and employee. So as you can see, the workplace manager, the primary job of the workplace manager is responsible for managing the facilities and capacities, and also planning the workspace and staggered arrival. So if you have multiple elevators, multiple doors, planning those logistics is part of the workplace manager's task. Then we have the shift planner. The shift planner's job ultimately is to look at the operations of the employees, to set priorities, and to plan the shift scheduling intelligently. And that is the shift planner role. And that's a big role in this equation. We start with the facilities and workplace, then we look at the actual employees, that's the shift planning. And then we go right into the employee survey. And this is very interesting interface where once the shift planner sets up the schedule, we move on to the survey that's sent to the employees so they can choose the schedules they need and also reject or accept a particular shift. And then that goes back into the shift planner's visualization. And the visualization we use here is called a Gantt chart. And we're going to look in depth into the Gantt chart. Right before we do that, let's just take a quick preview of all the different components we covered last week. So to join us now is our sales engineer, Kanmani. She's going to join us. We also have our technical support and marketing team on this call, so they can help us with questions after this webinar. Go ahead, Kanmani, please. Can you show us the employee? This is the employee shift scheduling screen. So as soon as the shift planner sets up the schedule, a notification is sent to the mobile device asking the employee to go ahead and choose the schedule and their available days. So as the employee chooses these options and submits it, this information is sent to the shift planner, and the shift planner and automatically the shift planning optimization module sets up the schedule. And once it gets approved, the employee gets back something like a boarding pass that authorizes the employee to report to work. And the arrival time is even set up in a staggered fashion so that they don't crowd up the elevators or the hallway or the public space. So it's a very planned schedule. Okay, so let's jump into the live demo now, please. So as I said, we're going to go ahead and start looking at the different modules from last week. Let's start with the actual homepage with the dashboard. So this is called the Workplace Command Center. This brings together the workplace status, the wellness status by location, wellness status, and some more information from the other modules, such as the contact tracing and the health screening. So in this particular presentation, we're just going to focus on the wellness status. So if you look at the third block, you can see there is 289 individuals. Out of 289, 37% have completed the survey, the employee health screening survey, saying that they're ready to come back to work. And this is kind of a consent / validating their health related to COVID-19. So 37%, which is 107, have chosen to report to work. Then 25% have chosen to work remotely. And then there is a 20% unavailable and 17% unreachable, or they could not be communicated. So this kind of gives a management dashboard to see the overall wellness status for your organization. Okay, now let's go ahead and into the facility hierarchy. Now this is the facilities planning. This is where the different floors, the different conference rooms, the different kitchens, the different bathrooms, all that information is loaded into this particular component. And the capacity for each of those locations is also entered in this location. Now, for instance, if there's a restroom with 2 stalls, the capacity could be 1 person at a time. So you would set up the capacity as 1 here, and somehow some companies are putting in badges outside just so only 1 person can get in and 1 person can come out. So there are different ways that that's being managed. Okay, so that is your facility hierarchy. Now that we have set up the actual location and the capacity for each of those locations, let's move into the facility plans. Now the facility plans, I'm going to go ahead and request our sales engineer, Kanmani, to go ahead and show us an example of a facility plan. And go ahead, Kanmani.
Thank you, Alex. So now we are going to look on workplace manager role. So workplace manager is the person who is going to create a shift for the employee. So here the workplace manager will choose as a parent location. So as our example, let's choose Soft Square. So Soft Square is a parent location, that is a building. So let's choose. And here he'll be choosing the week, so 17. So before creating a shift facility plan, he'll be calculate arrival windows. So this particular window will help to calculate the interval of the each employee. So if you look into this arrival window calculator, so the workplace manager will enter the arrival interval for each employee, that is 15 minutes. And in our building, we have only one elevator. So number of elevator is one and its capacity like a small. So usually the round trip will be 2 minutes, but we are adding 1 more minute for the reason of cleaning the elevator each round trip. So based on this calculation, the facility manager will plan the facility plan for the employee. So based on this response, he's going to add a facility plan. So here he'll be it'll be put input for a reduced occupancy like a 10%, that let's put 10. And this is here we'll be choosing a back to work policy. So this is our scheduling policy. So here we'll be choose a weekdays. So weekdays or weekend depends upon your requirement. So we'll be choose a work days here. So let's choose weekdays. So once he choose, by using this arrival window calculation, he's going to populate the staggered arrivals. So here we are starting with our shift at 9 a.m. So we are starting that time. And employer are allowed to enter till 11 a.m. So we are keeping 11 a.m. here. And this occupancy per interval is nothing but based on this calculation. So 5 people can enter every 15 minutes. So once he submit, he'll be generate a shift. So once he generate a shift, now the access is going to a shift planner. So let's choose a time here. Let me start with the 9. So till this workplace manager role gets in. So now we are going to look it into a shift planner role. So let's go for the availability request. So shift planner is the person who's responsible for sending a notification to an employee for asking whether they're availability to workplace. And also here he'll be sending set up a screen. So he'll be set a notification to the employee line. So we are going to set a shift for August 17 and availability range end date is 21st. And here the shift planner will give an employee response due date. That is, we are going to keep 14. So that is on or before. So their employee have to submit their response. So he'll be choose the days.
That's great. So that, as you can see, in this section, the availability request, as you can see, it comes from the shift plan. Now this screen is where the request is being sent to the actual employee, and once the employee submits their preference, then that's when we move into shift scheduling. This is where we left off last week. So let's go ahead and take a look at that section on shift scheduling, please.
Yes, Alex.
Thank you. So this is the view for the shift planner. Remember the roles we looked at, the workplace manager, shift planner, and employee. The shift planner, this is the, per se, a dashboard for the shift planner. And what the shift planner does is they look at this to see how their staff across different locations and different time, as you can see, the top column is the time dimension and the vertical column is the location. And you can collapse and expand. Let's say if you have 30 buildings, and you have a hierarchy within those buildings like floors and sections and segments, you can collapse them all and see them in a very hierarchical fashion. Also, the color coding on the band is dependent on if there is a conflict, if they have responded to the survey that was sent on the availability request. So if they have not responded, the color is a yellow color. And then if they have responded, it's a blue color. So as you can see, as the employees start responding, And if there's a conflict or an overlap, this particular view can highlight that in red, and we can quickly see how to mitigate that scheduling conflict. So if you look on the left side, you can see that there is the all service appointments, and you can look at unscheduled. You can filter by and see if some of the employees are not unscheduled. So quickly, you can click on those and schedule them or send them another availability request which fits their need. So one of the things that we looked at in depth was, how does this optimization engine work, and how does it organize all this? How do we prioritize if two employees are competing for the same time slot? So that's where the policy, there are policies you can set up based on their skill set, based on the resources available, based on their location, based even on the time it takes for them to come from their home to work, the arrival time distance. So you can have so many different variables that you can use to calculate that weighting. So essentially, it's a weighted average, and if there's a conflict in that weighted average, the shift planner can work on resolving that. So at this time, I'd like to introduce our marketing director, Sridhar, and just kind of go over one scenario which seems very interesting, and that is the first one, which is Olivia, who does not, it has a status of unavailable. So Sridhar, can you go ahead and let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and figure out what's happening with that particular employee. So at this moment, that employee has not taken the survey and they have not provided us an update. So there are two ways we can go ahead and mitigate this risk. One is the shift manager may have received a phone call, and now let's assume that Olivia is available for work. So Sridhar, go ahead and walk us through how to change the status of that employee to available for work, and how to use the shift scheduler's automated tool, the optimizer, to schedule it automatically. Go ahead. So let's watch how that's being done. Go ahead, Sridhar.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I hope you guys are well. So as explained by my good friend Alex, you can see the scenario that that can generally happen in a workplace, where an employee can say that they're not coming in for work, and at the last moment their health check and everything clears, and then they opt in to come for work. So at that time, you have to plan, or you have to make sure that their arrival is as seamless as possible. So Kanmani, please go ahead and change their status to available.
Yes, teacher.
So you can see that in the employee section, she is going and then she is changing the wellness status from unavailable to available to work. And once that is done, please switch to the screen. After around like a 10-second window, the status has changed to available section. Once this is done, based on the unscheduled policy that Alex had explained earlier, you will be able to set a shift for Olivia over here. And that's done using the optimize tool over here. Karmani, please.
Yes, teacher.
So based on the policy that has been set, whether it is back to work or whether the policy is set on a prioritization for specific employees, this shift will be scheduled for Olivia, and you can see it running in live.
Great. So it takes a few seconds to refresh, and once it's done, you'll see the live application of the scheduling module. Now the optimizer is running in the background, going through all the business rules and computing, and then it's going to slowly place that in that location.
All the things, like all the conflicts, all the other parameters will also be considered when this shift is being placed, so that there is a seamless entry into the office. Yeah, you can see that optimization is happening. It's in progress. There you go. So this has also calculated the arrival window for Olivia, and the entire shift pattern for a leave. Yeah, so that is one of the scenarios that we have looked into it. Over to you, Alex. Thank you.
Great. Now, as you can see, the shift management module is more complicated than just managing time and resources. It does a lot more. And we have explored it. We have looked at different shift patterns. We have looked at best ways to optimize the tool and provide the best value for the COVID-19 reopening. So looking at that from that perspective, I think what we can do is we can look at a holistic view. We started with the employee health screening, and then we went into shift management. And next week, we're going to look into the contact tracing part of this whole reopening initiative. Now, what we also have is a 1-hour free clinic that you can reach out to us, and we can go ahead and help you with trying to figure out how to help you set up your shift management correctly, and also share some of the best practices that we have learned along the way. Saying that, I would like to turn this over to Mr. Giri and open up for questions.
Alex, apparently I seem to get a question from one of the attendees. It is like, what will how he's asking that he's having a set of technicians who are working on his firm, and then how he will be able to schedule the shifts using shift management.
Okay, great. Go ahead and take that.
Yes, Alex.
Sridhar, could you ask a question one more?
The question was that apparently he's telling that he's handling a set of technicians in his organization who will have multiple multiple appointments in a day, and how they will be able to use this shift management tool to their to the best possible outcome.
So still we can change the policy here. We have some kind of policy here, kind of back to work, customer first, and field work. So we can change the policy. Those policy is nothing but we are designing some algorithm in back end. So based upon this policy, we can perform that particular requirement.
Great.
Yeah, and the policies, as I mentioned before, is the parameters that you set up, such as the employee skill priority. For instance, in a technical support environment, the technical support rep takes preference. And if this is a network operations center, the NOC manager or the NOC employee takes preference. If it's a hospital, the nurses and the doctors take preference. And so there are different aspects to that, right? So different organizations have different preferences. So part of setting up the shift planning and also part of the job of the workplace manager, these different areas are taken into account. Okay, that same, Sridhar, any other questions that we're getting? Now, we can reach out to you offline. Some of these questions are related to licensing and cost. So we will reach out to you offline with more details. And also, please look out for an email from our marketing team on that 1-hour free consultation for shift management. And in that, I'll be there, and we'll have some of our engineers. We can try to answer or help you with solving some of the problems. We're open and committed to reopening, and also we're open and committed to doing some free service for COVID-related initiatives. So that's part of our free clinic initiative. So I thank you so much, and thanks for your time. Wish you a pleasant weekend. And that concludes our webinar for today. I was looking forward to seeing you next week, next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have something very exciting. We have the Salesforce contact tracing, and also we're going to introduce a new product, a very revolutionary product and we'll keep that as a surprise and we'll introduce it on our next webinar. Thank you. Okay, back to you, Mr. Andy. If there's anything else, or we're going to conclude this webinar. Thanks.
Thank you, every one of you, for attending this webinar. Looking forward to having you listen to our webinar and gain knowledge of emergency response management module and contact tracing module from the salesforcework.com product. Thanks again.
And thank you. Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Giri, for opening up COVID-19 and providing a 1-hour free consultation for your clients and for customers around the world. Thank you.
Sure, absolute pleasure.
Okay, goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.